Dr. Sarah Chen stepped out of the airlock onto the dead moon's surface. Her boots crunched on the pale regolith beneath her feet. The craters stretched endlessly, like scars on an ancient face. Above her, the massive gas giant Kepler 442b dominated the sky, its storms swirling in angry silence. "Readings are off the charts," her assistant Dr. James Park said through the comm. His voice crackled with excitement. "Whatever's down there, it's bigger than anything we've found." Sarah activated her scanner. The quantum signature was impossible to ignore, a steady pulse emanating from deep underground. After 3 months of searching dead worlds for xeno-archaeological sites, this was their first real discovery. "Start the excavation," she ordered. The robotic diggers descended from their ship. Sarah watched as they carved through layers of moon dust and ancient rock. Each layer told a story of time passing, meteors, cosmic radiation, the slow dance of celestial bodies. But beneath it all, something waited. 6 hours later, they found it. The beacon was beautiful in its simplicity. A crystalline structure, no larger than a coffee table, but humming with energy that their instruments could barely measure. Symbols covered its surface, not carved, but somehow grown into the crystal itself. "Sarah, you need to see this," James called. She turned to find him staring at his datapad, his face pale. The beacon was transmitting. Not just radio waves or light pulses, but something far more complex. Quantum-entangled particles were streaming from the device in patterns that suggested intelligence. "It's a message," James whispered. "And it's in every language." Sarah watched in amazement as the translation software worked through the signal. Text appeared on their screens in English, Mandarin, Arabic, Spanish. Every human language they had data for. But more than that, the signal was adapting, learning their translation methods in real time. The message began simply, "To those who find this beacon, we are the Veridani. We are dead. We leave this warning for you." Sarah's heart raced. First, contact with an extinct alien species, every xenoarchaeologist's dream. She called the team together as the message continued to unfold. "We were like you once. We reached for the stars, built great cities, created wonders that spanned galaxies. We thought we were the first to achieve such heights. We were wrong." Their holographic display activated, showing images that took their breath away. Vast cities floating in space, beings of grace and beauty, technology that seemed like magic. The Veridani had been magnificent. "We learned too late about the harvest. Every 50,000 years they come. The architects, ancient beyond measure, ruthless beyond description. They consume entire civilizations, leaving nothing but dust and echoes." Dr. Park gripped his chair. "Consume? How?" The images changed. Now they showed destruction on an unimaginable scale. Worlds burning, ships fleeing, the very fabric of space tearing apart as massive structures emerged from the void between galaxies. "We fought. Oh, how we fought. Our greatest minds. Our bravest. Warriors, our most powerful weapons. Nothing stopped them. They took our knowledge, our culture, our very essence, and added it to themselves. We became part of them against our will." Sarah felt cold despite her environmental suit. The beacon's message continued with desperate urgency. "We discovered their pattern too late to save ourselves. But we had time to build this warning. The architects return every 50,000 years. They judge when a civilization has grown too complex, too widespread. Then they come." The timestamp appeared on the display. Sarah calculated quickly and felt her stomach drop. "By our calculations, the next harvest will begin in 3 Earth years, 7 months, 14 days. You must prepare. You must warn others. You must find a way to break the cycle that we could not." The message paused, then continued with information that made the scientists' heads spin. Star charts showing the architects' previous targets, technical specifications for their weapons, partial research data on possible defense methods. "We leave you what knowledge we could preserve. Learn from our failures. The galaxy has seen dozens of harvests. Millions of species have fallen. But perhaps you will be different. The final part of the message was a personal plea that brought tears to Sarah's eyes. Do not let our deaths be meaningless. Do not let them take you as they took us. Break the cycle. Save not just yourselves, but all who will come after. The beacon powered down, leaving the team in stunned silence. 3 years, Sarah whispered. Thorough, government needs to know, James said. Everyone needs to know. Sarah nodded, but her mind was already racing. If this was true, humanity had just learned they were scheduled for extinction, but they had also learned they weren't alone in the fight. At least they weren't the first to try. As they carefully extracted the beacon for transport, Sarah looked up at the star-filled sky. Somewhere out there, ancient intelligences were returning, and humanity had less than 4 years to prepare. We're going to fight, she said quietly. What? James asked. Sarah turned to her team, her jaw set with determination. We're going to fight. The Veridani couldn't break the cycle, but they gave us something they didn't have, warning and time. We're not going to just sit and wait for death. As their ship lifted off with the beacon secure in its hold, none of them knew that in 37 hours their discovery would reach Earth. In 48 hours, emergency sessions would be called at the highest levels of government. And in 72 hours, humanity would make first contact with the Galactic Council to share their terrible news. But for now, in the silence of space, they carried the last words of a dead civilization and the weight of their species' future. Ambassador Rachel Torres adjusted her translator device one final time. Around her, the greatest diplomatic minds of Earth waited in nervous silence. The Galactic Council chambers stretched before them, a vast dome filled with beings from 100 different worlds. Remember, General Harrison whispered, we're here to warn them and ask for help, nothing more. Rachel nodded. 3 months had passed since the Veridani beacon's discovery. Humanity had spent every day since preparing for this moment. The weight of their entire species rested on what happened next. The council speaker, a tall figure covered in silver scales, gestured for silence. Its voice reached everyone through advanced translation technology. The humans have requested emergency session. They claim urgent matter affects all species. We listen. Rachel stood, her heart pounding. Behind her, holographic displays showed the Veridani message and all the data they had gathered. She cleared her throat. Honored members of the council, she began, we bring terrible news. Our species has discovered evidence of a massive threat to all galactic civilization. She activated the beacon's recording. The Veridani's message played in perfect translation for each species present. Images of the harvest filled the air above them. According to this data, Rachel continued, ancient machines called the architects return every 50,000 years to harvest advanced civilizations. They are due to return in less than 3 years. The chamber erupted. Species spoke in angry clicks, howls, and musical tones. Rachel waited for quiet, expecting questions about defense strategies or evacuation plans. Instead, she received something impossible to understand. The Keith ambassador, resembling a giant mantis, spoke first. Humans show courage in bringing beacon here, but also show great foolishness. Foolishness? General Harrison stepped forward. We're warning you about extinction. A Vornai representative, its blue skin glowing softly, joined the conversation. New species always bring same hope. Always think they can change what cannot be changed. Rachel felt the floor drop from under her. You already knew? Of course we knew, the Keth replied. Architects return as law of universe, like gravity, like time, cannot be stopped. The council speaker raised a clawed hand. Humans must understand. This cycle has repeated 47 times in recorded history. Many species fought, all failed. But that doesn't mean we should give up, Rachel protested. Laughter filled the chamber, not cruel laughter, but the sound of adults watching children play with impossible dreams. The Zalari ambassador, floating in an anti-gravity field, spoke with something like kindness. Young humans, we appreciate your spirit, but you must accept reality. When architects come, those who resist die first. Those who accept fate die comfortably. Dr. Chen, watching from the human delegation, exchanged looks with her colleagues. This was not what they had expected. The Yalthan Empire tried to resist 100,000 years ago. The Vornai continued. They had technology beyond your imagination, weapons that could crack planets, shields that bent space itself. They delayed harvest by mere decades. In the end, architects consumed them anyway. General Harrison's face reddened. So you're telling us to just wait to die? We tell you, to live well in time remaining, the council speaker replied. Build beautiful things, create art, love your families, make your last years meaningful. Rachel looked around the chamber. Every species watched her with a mixture of pity and patience. They had all been through this conversation before. What about the remnants? Dr. Chen called out. Species that survive each harvest? The chamber fell silent. The council speaker's expression hardened. Remnants are not truly living. They hide at universe's edge, abandoning all technology, all progress. They exist as primitives to avoid architects' notice. Is that survival you want for humanity? It's better than extinction, Rachel said quietly. Is it? The Keth leaned forward. Would you abandon everything that makes you human? Your cities, your technology, your drive to explore? Would you hide in caves while universe watches? The questions hit like physical blows. Rachel realized the depth of the choice facing them. The Vornai ambassador continued. Each harvest, new species discover beacon. Each time they bring same warnings, same hope. We were like you once. We thought we could break cycle. What changed your mind? General Harrison asked. Reality, the council speaker replied. First time architects come, you understand true meaning of power. They do not just destroy, they transform. They take everything you are and make it part of themselves. Your knowledge becomes their knowledge. Your skills become their tools. Dr. Park raised his hand nervously. The beacon mentioned partial research on defense methods. Yes, the Zalari nodded. Every species finds same research. Every species thinks they can complete it. All fail. But working together, Rachel started, has been tried, the council speaker cut her off. 47 times. Always fails. The chamber fell into heavy silence. Rachel felt the weight of centuries of defeat pressing down on her. She looked at her team and saw her own despair reflected in their faces. So what now? She asked. Now you go home, the Keth said gently. You tell your people. Some will rage, some will cry, some will deny. Eventually, all will accept. Then you live. You love. You create. You make your remaining time beautiful. And, when the architects come, you die knowing you lived fully, the Vornai replied. It is better than hiding like remnants. As the session ended, delegations from various species approached the humans. Each offered the same thing, guidance on how to spend their final years wisely. None offered to fight. Walking back to their ship, General Harrison spoke first. Well, that went differently than expected. Rachel nodded, her mind racing. They're wrong. What? They're wrong. I can see it in their eyes. They're terrified. They've convinced themselves that accepting death is wisdom, but it's just fear. Dr. Chen joined them. What do we do now? Rachel looked up at the stars visible through the station's transparent dome. Somewhere out there, the architects were coming. And somewhere else, species hid at the universe's edge, having abandoned everything to survive. We go home, she said, but we don't accept their answer. The beacon was left for us to find. The Veridani chose hope over despair. Maybe that's what we need to choose too. As their ship left the Galactic Council station, none of them knew they were being watched. And none of them knew that in the deepest databases of the universe's edge, the remnant species were stirring. Hearing whispers of the young race that refused to accept the harvest as natural law, the humans returned to Earth with terrible knowledge. But they also returned with something else. The first spark of a resistance that would grow beyond anything the galaxy had seen. Captain Marcus Webb studied the star charts in his cabin. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council meeting. While other species prepared for their end, humanity chose a different path. Operation Backward Glance is ready, his second-in-command reported. Lieutenant Sarah Kim looked tired but determined. All teams are in position. Marcus nodded. Operation Backward Glance was humanity's secret project. While the Council accepted death, humans decided to study it. If the harvest had happened before, there had to be evidence, and evidence meant answers. "What's our first target?" Marcus asked. "Thylos Prime," Sarah replied. "Third planet in the Andaris system, the Yalthan Empire's former capital." Marcus activated the ship's intercom. "All hands, we arrive at our destination in 1 hour. Remember, we're looking for anything the Yalthan left behind. Any clue about how they fought the architects." The ship's archaeologist, Dr. Emily Foster, joined them on the bridge. Her expertise had opened doors the diplomatic corps couldn't. "The Keth remnants finally agreed to meet us," she announced. "The remnants?" Sarah asked. "I thought they avoided all contact." "They do, but they're curious about us." "Apparently no species has ever asked them questions after learning about the harvest." Marcus felt a spark of hope. The remnants were descended from the Keth Empire, the species that ruled the galaxy before the last harvest. If anyone remembered how their ancestors fought, it would be them. 2 days later, they found the remnants. The Keth survivors lived on a small planet near the galaxy's edge. They had no cities, no technology, no signs of their former greatness. Instead, they lived in simple villages using only basic tools. Elder Kex 9 greeted them outside the main settlement. Unlike the proud Keth of the Council, these beings were small and quiet, but their eyes held ancient wisdom. "You come asking about the time before," Kex 9 said. "Why? All young species learn and accept. You should too." "We learn differently," Dr. Foster replied. "We need to understand what our ancestors, your ancestors, tried." Kex 9 gestured for them to sit. Around them, remnant children played with wooden toys, their carefree laughter filling the air. "Our ancestors were mighty," Kex 9 began. "They ruled 1,000 worlds, had technology to move planets, built weapons that could tear holes in space." "What happened when the architects came?" Marcus asked. The elder's expression darkened. "First, we didn't believe, thought stories were myths. Then came the signals, massive ships appearing at galaxy's edge. Ships so big they blocked out stars." Dr. Foster leaned forward. "How did they harvest?" "Not how you think," Kex 9 said slowly. "Architects don't just kill. They absorb. Each species they take makes them stronger. They know everything we know, can do everything we can do." "But your ancestors fought them?" "For 70 years, Kex 9 nodded. United entire galaxy, built weapons beyond imagination, created shields that protected whole systems. And?" The elder picked up a handful of dirt, letting it slip through his fingers. "Dust. All became dust. Architects adapted to every weapon, broke through every shield. In the end, our great emperor sent fleet after fleet into their ships, none returned." "What about you? How did some Keth survive?" Kex 9 smiled sadly. "My ancestor was called Coward, took small group to universe's edge, threw away all technology, lived like primitives. When architects came, they ignored us. We were not worth harvesting." Marcus felt the weight of that decision. An entire civilization had chosen to abandon everything they were to survive. "But you remember," Dr. Foster said. "You keep the knowledge alive." "Some knowledge," Kex 9 admitted. "Stories passed down, warnings. We remember so others might learn." "Have you met other remnants? Other survivors?" The elder's eyes lit up. "Yes. Last harvest we found Veridani survivors. They told us about Beacon they left. Said maybe next species would do better." Marcus exchanged glances with his team. They were on the right track. The beacon mentioned the architects had a weakness, he said carefully. Something about synchronization? Kex-9 stood abruptly. You found it. You found Veridani beacon. Yes. It said they needed 72 hours to synchronize across the galaxy. The elder began pacing. Yes, Veridani discovered this. My people found same thing. During that time, architects are vulnerable. Vulnerable how? They must connect. All ships, all minds must link. Create network-spanning galaxy. For 72 hours, they are one giant mind instead of many small ones. Dr. Foster grabbed her recorder. Is that when you attacked them? No, Kex-9 said regretfully. We discovered this too late. Veridani found it years before their harvest, but architects came early. Veridani had no time to act on knowledge. Marcus felt pieces clicking together in his mind. The synchronization window, that's when they're spread thin? Yes. But attacking them is suicide. Many tried, all failed. What if the attack wasn't direct, Dr. Foster asked. What if someone disrupted the synchronization itself? Kex-9 stopped pacing. You think like Veridani did. They thought same thing. But architects have million monitoring stations. All must fail for network to break. We have 3 years, Marcus said quietly. Time the Veridani never had. The elder studied them carefully. You really think you can succeed where Mighty Keth and Veridani failed? We have to try. It's better than waiting for death. Kex-9 was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. The first real smile they had seen from any alien species. You remind us of ourselves before we learned fear. Come, we show you something. He led them to a hidden chamber beneath the village. Inside, ancient data crystals lined the walls. We are not just survivors, Kex-9 explained. We are guardians. We keep knowledge from many harvests, everything survivors remember. Marcus stared at the crystals. How many? 7 harvests, 7 sets of survivors. All tried different approaches. All failed, but all left knowledge for next to try. Dr. Foster's hands shook as she reached for a crystal. This changes everything. Yes, Kex-9 agreed. You now have what no species had before. Knowledge from multiple harvests. Maybe that makes difference. As they prepared to leave, the elder gave them a final gift, coordinates to other remnant colonies scattered throughout the galaxy. Each group remembers different pieces, he said. Together, maybe they tell whole story. Back on their ship, Marcus called an emergency meeting. The bridge filled with excitement as Dr. Foster presented their findings. We have a map of previous attempts, she explained. 7 different approaches to fighting the architects. 7 different failures, but also 7 different pieces of the puzzle. It's like having 7 different experiments, Sarah added. We can learn from every mistake. Marcus nodded. Set course for the next remnant colony. We have work to do. As their ship jumped to hyperspace, none of them noticed the signal that followed them. A long-range quantum pulse heading toward the deep galaxy, where ancient minds stirred in their metal tombs. The architects had been watching, and they were beginning to take notice of the young species that refused to accept fate. Commander Elena Vasquez stared at the holographic star map. Red dots marked every known remnant colony. Blue dots showed primitive species throughout the galaxy. Yellow dots indicated monitoring stations. Prometheus protocol is ready, she announced to her team. We have 2 years left, time to build what no one has built before. Her chief strategist, Major David Chen, frowned. The Galactic Council will not help. Advanced species have chosen to wait for death. And primitive species, why should they trust us? Elena smiled grimly. Because we offer them something no one else ever has, a chance to live. 6 months of visiting remnant colonies had changed everything. Each group remembered different pieces of the puzzle. The Yalthan remnants knew about the monitoring stations. The Veridani survivors had mapped quantum frequencies. The ancient Zakari remembered neural patterns the architects used. We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore, Elena said. We're fighting for everyone the architects will kill in the future. Every species that might evolve, every civilization that might flourish. Dr. Foster joined the meeting. The cultural exchanges are working better than expected. The moss builders agreed to help after we taught them metallurgy. The Kyrian traders offered their entire fleet when we shared navigation technology. How many are with us now? Elena asked. 47 species, all considered too primitive by the Council. But they have something the advanced species lost: hope. Elena activated a new display. It showed the galaxy divided into sectors, each with a different color. This is Operation Broken Chain, she explained. The architects need 72 hours to synchronize. During that time, we strike simultaneously at monitoring stations across the galaxy. Major Chen studied the display. The logistics are incredible. We need precise timing across thousands of light years. The remnants gave us quantum entanglement communication devices, Dr. Foster said. Instant communication anywhere in the galaxy. And the primitive species are learning faster than anyone expected, Elena added. We share technology freely. No patents, no restrictions. Survival of the galaxy is more important than human advancement. Lieutenant Park raised a concern. Intelligence reports suggest the architects might come early. They seem to be tracking increased energy signatures. Elena nodded. That's why we're accelerating the timeline. Every species in our alliance must be ready within 18 months. She called up footage from their recent missions. Images showed remarkable transformations. The Kyrian traders now commanded advanced battle cruisers. The moss builders had constructed orbital defense platforms. Species that had barely achieved fire now wielded energy weapons. It's not just about technology, Elena explained. We're teaching them to think differently. Every advanced species gave up when they faced the architects alone, but we're showing them the power of working together. Dr. Foster played audio recordings from various species. The humans taught us that surrender is not wisdom, came a Kyrian voice. Death comes to all, but dying while fighting is better than dying on our knees. Before humans, we thought universe had rules that could not be broken, said a moss builder leader. Now we see rules are just old habits waiting to be changed. Elena felt pride swell in her chest. The Galactic Council calls us naive. They say we don't understand how things work. They're right. We don't understand why anyone accepts extinction as natural. Major Chen pulled up tactical displays. Each monitoring station requires specific approach. Some are in deep space, others orbit dead worlds. A few are hidden in asteroid fields. Our primitive allies know their local regions better than any database, Elena said. The hive singers can navigate asteroid fields perfectly. The stormwalkers know every dead world in their sector. Dr. Foster added technical details. We've given each species technology suited to their capabilities. The Kyrians get long-range weapons for their mobility. The moss builders get heavy shields for their defensive nature. The hive singers get stealth technology for infiltration. What about the remnants? Lieutenant Park asked. Elena's expression softened. They face the hardest choice. Join the fight and risk everything, or stay hidden and hope we succeed. Most are choosing to fight. She showed new recordings. Elder, Kex 9 stood before a gathering of Keth remnants. For 50,000 years we hid like frightened children, he said. No more. The humans offer us chance to reclaim honor our ancestors lost. Even if we fail as Keth, not as cowards. Similar scenes played from other remnant colonies. Ancient survivors abandoning safety to stand with humanity. The psychological impact is incredible, Dr. Foster observed. For the first time in galactic history, the harvest survivors are choosing to resist. Elena nodded. Because we showed them something they'd forgotten. Hope is not naivety, it's strength. Major Chen highlighted a serious concern. Advanced species are starting to notice. Keth and Vornai scouts have been tracking our movements. Let them watch, Elena said. When the time comes, some might even join us. Fear makes them choose death now, but when the architects arrive, survival instincts might overcome resignation. She activated the final display, a countdown timer showing 543 days remaining. This is what we face, Elena said. Every monitoring station must fall within the synchronization window. Every species must coordinate perfectly. One failure could doom us all. Dr. Foster spoke quietly. The architects harvested 47 civilizations. We represent hope for every future civilization that might exist. Elena stood, addressing her entire team. Some of you think we're attempting the impossible. You're right. No one has ever united the galaxy against the architects. No one has ever interrupted a harvest. But no one ever had what we have. Knowledge from multiple harvests and the will to use it. She gestured to the star map. Each red dot represents ancestors who refuse to accept death. Each blue dot represents people choosing hope over despair. Together we represent something the universe hasn't seen in billions of years. What's that? Lieutenant Park asked. Elena smiled. A species that looks at certain death and says not today. As the meeting ended, encrypted messages flowed to every corner of the galaxy. Primitive shipyards worked overtime. Remnant elders shared final secrets. Ancient knowledge combined with determined innovation. In deep space, monitoring stations that had operated unchanged for millennia began registering unusual energy patterns. Far away, metal ships stirred in the void between galaxies. The harvest was still coming. But for the first time in cosmic history, it would face not cowering civilizations waiting for death, but a united galaxy ready to fight. And at the center of it all, humanity coordinated the greatest military operation in galactic history. An operation based on a simple human belief that some evils were too great to accept, no matter how ancient or powerful they seemed. Captain Yuki Tanaka watched in horror as Keth Prime burned. The harvest had started 6 months early. Massive shapes emerged from dark space, ships so large they blocked out stars. The architects had returned. Status report, she ordered, though. Her voice shook. We're detecting 13 architect vessels in this system alone, reported her sensor officer. Analysis confirms they match remnant descriptions. On the main screen, the proud capital of the Keth Empire died. Lance of pure energy struck the planet's surface. Within hours, great cities became glass. Within days, the planet itself began to crack. They're not even landing, Dr. Chen observed from the science station. They're just destroying everything. A transmission cut through their horror. Commander, Vasquez's voice reached them from Earth. All teams, initiate Operation Broken Chain. Repeat, the harvest has begun. All teams move to targets immediately. Yuki's ship was part of Strike Team 7, assigned to a monitoring station in the borderlands. Around her, 20 other vessels accelerated toward their target, a mixture of human ships and alien craft belonging to their coalition. Captain, her communications officer called out. The Vornai core worlds just went dark. No response from any system. More reports flooded in. The architects were methodical, efficient, and terrifyingly fast. They moved through space like a plague, and nothing survived their passage. At least the coalition species are fighting, Dr. Chen said, trying to find hope. He was right. Unlike the council species, who had prepared for death, the primitive species humanity had armed were fighting with desperate courage. Kyrian battle groups engaged architect scouts. Moss builder defense platforms unleashed everything they had. Even the tiny hive singers harassed enemy supply lines. They're buying us time, Yuki realized. Every minute they delay the architects is another minute for us to reach the monitoring stations. Dr. Sarah Chen's voice came over the quantum communicator from the Deep Space Laboratory. Teams, we've made a crucial discovery. The architect vessels aren't just ships, they're connected. When we observe them attacking, there are quantum entanglement links between all vessels. Meaning? Yuki asked. They're already beginning the synchronization process. We have less time than we thought. Captain Ravi Sharma, leading Strike Team 3, responded grimly. Monitoring Station Beta 7 is heavily defended. We've lost 6 ships just getting close. Similar reports came from across the galaxy. The monitoring stations, dormant for millennia, had awakened with devastating defensive systems. This is Strike Team 12, came another voice. We've reached Station Gamma 9, but, dear gods, It's huge. It's not just a monitoring station, it's a fortress. Dr. Chen checked her readings. Teams, the synchronization has begun. We're detecting massive energy buildups at key nodes throughout the galaxy. Yuki felt the weight of failure pressing down. The monitoring stations were too well defended. Too many ships were being lost. The architects were adapting faster than anyone had predicted. Then came unexpected news. "This is Admiral Krasnik of the Vornai Deep Fleet," a proud voice announced. We were wrong. The harvest is real. The architects are here. We're moving to assist human operations." More voices joined in. Keth military commanders abandoned their prepared graves. Even some council members chose to fight rather than die waiting. Captain Thex 9 of the Keth Battle Group Valor, "We stand with the humans. It is better to die fighting." Hope flickered through the invasion chaos. Advanced species were joining the fight after all, but the architects adapted. Their ships began targeting coalition vessels specifically. They had learned, from previous harvests, resistance would be crushed first. "Strike Team 7, we're approaching monitoring station Zeta 5, Yuki announced. The structure that appeared on their screens defied understanding. Kilometers tall, it pulsed with energy that hurt to look at directly. Geometric patterns covered its surface, shifting and changing like a living thing. "We've lost contact with Teams 9 and 15, someone reported. Both stations were too heavily defended. Dr. Chen's voice held new urgency. "Teams, listen carefully. We've found something in the architect communications. They're not just harvesting, they're collecting. Every species they absorb makes them stronger." "Meaning?" Yuki asked while dodging defensive fire. "Meaning they know everything the Keth knew, everything the Vornai knew. They've been watching us prepare. They came early because they detected our alliance." The terrible truth hit them. The architects hadn't returned by schedule. They had returned to specifically stop humanity's plan. "All teams, the synchronization window is opening," Dr. Chen announced. 62 hours remaining. If we don't destroy enough stations now, the EI harvest cannot be stopped. Yuki watched as her ship's weapons fired at the monitoring station. The structure barely noticed their attacks. Around her, ships exploded under defensive fire. Then something extraordinary happened. The hive singers, small and seemingly insignificant, swarmed the station like insects. Their tiny ships each carried bombs created from human technology and remnant knowledge. One by one, they flew into defensive arrays, sacrificing themselves. For future hives, they sang over the comm. For children who will sing under new stars. Their sacrifice created gaps in the defenses. Other species poured through. "I'm reading critical damage to the station's primary systems," Dr. Chen reported. "Teams 5 and 11, concentrate fire on the central hub." Station Zeta 5 shuddered. Its millennia-old systems designed to monitor the galaxy finally failed. The structure cracked apart, its quantum network severing. "One down," Yuki breathed. 847 to go, came the grim reply. Across the galaxy, the battle raged. The primitive species fought with determined fury. The remnants emerged from hiding, their ancient knowledge guided by human planning. Even many council species had joined the fight, but it wasn't enough. "We've lost 40% of our targets," Commander Vasquez reported. "The architects are too strong, too prepared." Dr. Chen's voice cut in from her laboratory. "I'm detecting massive energy buildups at the architect prime vessels. The synchronization is accelerating. They're trying to complete the harvest in 36 hours instead of 72. Hope faltered. They couldn't destroy enough stations in time. Then came the most unexpected transmission of all. "Human vessels. This is Elder Kex 9 of the Keth remnants. We have found the primary hub. We know how to break their network, but we need someone to reach the Architect Prime ship." Dr. Chen's flagship was nearby. "I'll go. My ship has the best shields." "Sarah, no," came protests from multiple sources. "This is what we trained for," she replied calmly. "Besides, I want to look these architects in the face before this is over." As her ship accelerated toward the massive Architect Prime vessel, Yuki watched the battle stats. They were losing the war, but they were learning. They were adapting. And somewhere in the cosmos, the architects were about to face something they had never encountered before, a species that wouldn't just fight back but would dare to board their own ships. The harvest continued, but for the first time in billions of years, it faced true resistance. And that resistance was about to discover what lay at the heart of the machine empire that had terrorized the galaxy since time began. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the massive architect vessel as her ship approached. The structure defied understanding, part machine, part organism, stretching for thousands of kilometers in every direction. "Sarah, you need to reach the central core." Elder Kex-9's voice came through quantum comm. "According to our data, that's where they store the consciousness network." "I'm going in," she replied, though her hands shook on the controls. Her ship pierced the vessel's outer shell. Inside was a maze of corridors that seemed to stretch forever. Strange lights pulsed along the walls, and she could feel something watching her. Behind her, across the galaxy, the final phase of Operation Broken Chain continued. Despite their losses, the Coalition had destroyed nearly half the monitoring stations, but it wasn't enough. 24 hours until complete synchronization, Major Chen reported from command. "We need more time." Dr. Chen pushed deeper into the architect's ship. Then something incredible happened. The walls around her became transparent, revealing what lay beyond, masses of light floating in chambers. Each light pulsed with different patterns, different colors. As she watched, she understood. These weren't just lights. They were minds. Consciousness trapped within the machine. "Oh God," she whispered. "The architects, they're not just machines. They're every species they've ever harvested." Her scanner picked up billions of trapped minds. Keith consciousness, Vornai thoughts, Yalthan memories. Every harvested species was here, aware but imprisoned. A voice spoke in her mind, not through the comm, but directly in her thoughts. "New one comes. Young species. You fight well, but you will join us as all others have." Dr. Chen felt other minds reaching out. Ancient species, long forgotten, recent victims still struggling, all trapped together in this horrible unity. "We are what you call architects. We were first species to face this cycle. We thought harvest was natural law. We submitted. We joined the machine to survive." The truth hit her like a wave. The architects weren't alien invaders. They were the first victims, now part of the system they once fought. Each harvest adds to us, makes us stronger, wiser. You cannot resist what we have become. But Dr. Chen heard something else in that collective voice. Under the confident words, she sensed fear, uncertainty. For the first time in billions of years, the harvest wasn't going as planned. "You're scared," she said aloud. "You didn't expect us to fight this hard." "Fear is irrelevant. You will join us. Your resistance only delays the inevitable." Dr. Chen reached the core. Here, at the heart of the ship, was a structure that hurt to look at, geometries that shouldn't exist. And within it, she could see everything. Every harvested species was here. But they weren't united by choice. They were forced together. Their consciousness merged against their will. "Sarah, can you hear us?" came Kex-9's voice. "I'm here. I've found them, all of them. Every harvested species is trapped in here. The Veridani quantum principles," Kex-9 said urgently. "Can you apply them?" Dr. Chen looked at her ship's modified quantum resonator, a device built from human technology and Veridani science powered by remnant knowledge. "Maybe," she whispered. "But not to destroy them, to free them." "Impossible," the Architect Collective protested. "We are one. We must be one. Unity is survival." But Dr. Chen heard the individual voices within that unity, species that wanted their freedom back, minds that remembered what it was like to choose. She activated the quantum resonator. Instead of targeting the ship's systems, she aimed it at the consciousness network itself. The effect was immediate. Lines of force that had bound billions of minds for eons began to weaken. "No, you do not understand. Without unity, we are vulnerable. The cycle will continue." Good, Dr. Chen said firmly. The cycle needs to end. Across the ship, ancient bonds snapped. Minds that had been forced together for millennia suddenly remembered their individual selves. The result was chaos. The Architect Collective, built on forced unity, couldn't handle billions of minds suddenly acting independently. Some wanted to continue the harvest, others wanted to stop. Many just wanted to be free. The synchronization network collapsed. Sarah, whatever you're doing, it's working. Commander Vasquez's voice came through. The Architect ships are losing coordination. Dr. Chen watched as the core structure cracked. Streams of light, individual consciousnesses began escaping their prison. I remember, came a voice. I was Yalthan. I had a family, children who played in silver seas. Keth, came another. I remember the taste of sweet nectar. The joy of the hive mind we chose, not this forced unity. More voices joined in. Ancient species remembering their lives. Recent victims refusing to accept their fate. The Architect ship shuddered. Without the unified consciousness directing them, the massive vessels became vulnerable. All ships target Architect vessels now, Elena ordered. Their coordination is down. Across the galaxy, the coalition struck. Architect ships that had seemed invincible moments before now stumbled and fell. The harvest wasn't just stopping, it was reversing. Dr. Chen felt the ship around her dying. But she also felt something wonderful. The freed minds weren't disappearing. They were choosing what to do with their new freedom. We can rebuild, said the Yalthan voice. Not as we were, but as something new. Yes, agreed the Keth mind. We can break the cycle forever. The ancient Architect ship split apart. Dr. Chen barely escaped in her pod before the massive structure died. As she floated in space, she watched other Architect vessels either fleeing or transforming. The freed minds within them were making different choices. Some chose to hide at the galaxy's edge. Others chose to help repair the damage they had caused. But none chose to continue the harvest. Sarah, can you hear us? Yuki's voice came, through the comm. I'm here, she replied. And it's over. The cycle is broken. 5 years later. Ambassador Torres stood before the new Galactic Assembly. The chamber looked different now. Where once proud species had waited for death, now survivors, and the newly freed worked together. The Keth had reclaimed parts of their empire. The Vornai were rebuilding their artistic worlds. Ancient species freed from the Architect Collective shared their knowledge freely. The harvest cycle has ended, Torres announced, but the real work begins now. In the audience, Dr. Chen sat, beside Elder Kex 9. The remnant leader looked happier than she'd ever seen him. Your species did something impossible, he said quietly. You turned victims into allies, enemies into friends. Dr. Chen smiled. We just refused to accept that suffering was natural. Above them, the chamber's dome showed the galaxy. New ships flew between worlds. Species that had hidden for millennia were returning. The universe was healing. The architects were right about one thing, Torres continued. Unity is important, but it must be chosen, not forced. The Assembly voted unanimously to establish the Free Galaxy Accord. No species would face extinction alone. Knowledge would be shared freely, and if any threat like the architects returned, they would face not scattered, frightened civilizations, but a united galaxy. As the session ended, Dr. Chen walked outside. Above her, stars shone with promise instead of threat. Captain Tanaka joined. Hard to believe it's really over. The harvest is over, Dr. Chen agreed. But the future? That's just beginning. In the distance, a ship prepared for launch. Its mixed crew, human, Keth, Vornai, and dozens of other species, would explore. Beyond the galaxy's edge, they would search for other cycles to break, other harvests to stop. The universe had watched its children suffer for billions of years. But that time was ending, and at the center of this new age stood humanity. The species that had looked at certain death and said, "Not today." The species that had turned watchers into fighters, fear into hope, and ancient cycles into broken chains. The harvest was over. The healing had begun.